going to talk about getting organized and how you can do more with your time. Effective time management and organization, along with the self-discipline to keep at them, will help you reach those big goals in life more easily. For instance, being better able to manage your finances, find and keep work, care for your families, and reach a greater level of self-sufficiency. As we consider this subject, of course, our objective is to define and discuss organization and time management. And interestingly, many people confuse these two subjects, often because they hear them in the same breath. But we're going to define the distinctions between them and discuss some simple ways to really improve in our own personal habits on both of them. This picture well symbolizes a feeling that most of us have experienced, feeling like we're at the mercy of the clock. Getting control of time can be very stressful for some people, and feeling like we're not in control of our life can even be dangerous. Maybe we feel like we just don't have time to get the snow tires on the car, or to get our kids in to the dentist, or no time to sit down and figure out how much we owe and to whom. Well, those feelings of disorganization and frustration are more common than you might realize. Here are some interesting statistics that might make you feel better if you go through some of those. 68% of Americans say they need to improve their organizational skills. And 90% of Americans say disorganization at home or at work has a negative impact on their lives. So right away you see by far the majority of people, regardless of how organized or well put together they may seem, they're struggling with this all the time. Which describes you best? Bowling or pinball? Most of us have probably played or at least heard of these games before, and they both require certain skill sets. Both can be a lot of fun. Now, pinball requires constant reaction, doesn't it? High-speed reflexes, reacting constantly to this ever-moving ball. Whereas bowling takes some special skills of its own, doesn't it? We have to be very skillful in the way we release the ball because we're trying to knock down as many pins at once, if not all of them. Well, which best describes how you handle your typical day? For most of us, probably it would be pinball. Things kind of come at us, the chaos of life, and we react to it, and that requires a certain skill set. But whenever possible, it can be very satisfying to have several of our tasks or pins lined up for the day, and by skillfully attacking them, get a strike. Take them all down at once. So many of the things that we're going to talk about today can help us in both sides of life to be able to respond quickly and skillfully as you do in pinball, but also take down as many pins at once as you can as you do in bowling. How would you define organization? It's kind of hard to define maybe right off the top of our head, but we certainly know it when we see it, don't we? Here are two pictures that make the difference clear. On the left, we see a picture of the average drawer, but on the right is one that's nice and tidy and organized. Clearly, it's a good example of organization. What makes the difference, and why is one more favorable than the other? Well, on the left are what might appear to be a lot more options, right? But there are also many more copies of the same item. You're going to have to dig through, struggle to find the thing that you're looking for, whereas on the right, things have been pared down to just what is needed, and you can find what you need very quickly. Wouldn't it be nice if everything in our homes and in our lives looked like that, like this organized drawer? So as we discuss organization now, think about the things in your life that you would like to make look like this second drawer, because we're going to show you the steps involved to, as defined here, impose a sense of order on your environment. Now, your environment really includes everything around you, even your workspace at work. It certainly includes things in your home, your bedroom, your garage, your kitchen, your closet, all the space that you inhabit and you use. So let's keep this definition of organization in mind. When we choose to organize something, we are choosing to impose a sense of order on our environment. And there are some great benefits that come with that. Now that we understand what organization is, let's talk a little bit about our motivation to go ahead and get organized. We only have about 168 hours in a week. And this is the same for everyone. Doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, young or old. We all have the same amount of hours in a day to deal with. And it's up to us to decide what to do with them. It might be encouraging to note that if you do feel a little disorganized at times, you're not alone. Newsweek magazine once reported that Americans on average waste up to 55 minutes a day. Even if that's kind of an exaggeration for us personally, it does help us to see that we could be putting a lot more time back into our life by getting it more organized. So getting organized is going to help you, number one, accomplish all those things that you have to do, many of which maybe you don't enjoy doing, but you have to get them done, and to do that more quickly. Doing that will, of course, allow you to have more free time, and you can put more of that time toward reaching the goals that actually matter to you, the things that you enjoy or want to accomplish. And another side benefit is it will help you to appear and to feel more together. To illustrate that, imagine going to a job interview. And if you've been feeling disorganized that day, maybe you got up late, you weren't really ready for the interview, you're not sure what you're going to say, you didn't have your clothes together, maybe your shirt has a stain on it, you didn't have time for a shower, your hair is kind of messed up. Now how do you feel during that interview? Versus, of course, being prepared because you were well organized. Maybe you could have done some research on the company that you were interviewing for. Your clothes are well put together and planned out. You're well groomed because you got up early and you were ready. All these things are going to help you appear more put together. You're going to have a much better chance of getting that job. So organization helps you across all aspects of life. Probably one of the first big obstacles to getting organized is the way we feel about it. Many people, when they even start discussing organization, feel overwhelmed. Especially the older you get, the more complicated your life gets. Our time becomes more limited. We have more commitments. And especially if we've stayed in a home for a period of time, maybe we even have more belongings, more clutter that's built up around us. And all these things can lead to a person just feeling absolutely overwhelmed. Many times they have good intentions, but they put things off for another day, another month, another year, and organization just becomes a dreaded task. So we want to tell you up front, it does not need to be, especially when we break it down to some simple steps. Really, there's 4 main steps that are thought of by many professionals to be a very good way to approach this subject of organization. And we're going to break each of these 4 down. They are, number 1, determining where to start. Number 2, set aside the time to get started. Number 3, make a plan. And number 4, clear out the clutter. So many times it's physical clutter of one sort or another that gets in people's way when they're trying to get organized and can tend to overwhelm them. So we'll talk about how we can address that as well. Step 1, determining where to start. Now, there are 2 key questions to ask yourself when you're trying to determine where to start. First, if I was to organize something, what would specifically save me a lot of time? And secondly, if you organize that thing, would it also save you from a lot of frustration? Here's a list of some examples of common answers that people have had. Many of them, as you can see, revolve around places in the home. But as you're looking at this, I'd like you to think to yourself those questions, and can you come up with one thing that you think to yourself, if this one thing were more organized, I'd probably have a lot more free time. Pause the video if you need to while you think about that, and once you've established an answer to it, if you've downloaded and printed out the organization worksheet, go ahead and write that task into step 1, determine where to start. And just a quick side point while you're thinking about that, don't worry or be overwhelmed that the task that you're picking is something that you just can't possibly get done. If it fits the description that we've come up with, go ahead and stick with it. Write it in there. You can always change it later if you find it necessary. Step 2, set aside the time. Now, once you've decided on what or where you're going to begin organizing, realistically determine how much time you can spend each day or each week to organize that area. Don't worry about trying to allot some large amount of time that you won't be able to fulfill. Just for now, focus on setting aside a reasonable amount of time. Even 15 or 30 minutes is going to help you get there eventually. And you may know that this thing's going to take 2 or 3 hours or maybe several days. Put that out of your mind for now. We'll deal with that later when we make a plan. But if you have even 15, 20 minutes free on your schedule and you know you can use that for organizing, mark it on your calendar and then stick to that. And we'll talk a little more later about managing time and using our calendar. But here's one good use for time management. Set aside the time for organizing. So going back to your sheet now is point number 2, set aside time. It asks the question, how often and how much time could I realistically afford for organizing? So there's 3 things you could fill in. How often, several times in a week maybe, how much, say 20 minutes, and then pick a start date when you want to begin following through on this. So now we know where to start. We know how much time we have. That brings us up to step number 3. It's time to make a plan. And you might even be able to use the first chunk of the time that you've allotted for yourself, that you set aside, just for making your plan. That's completely legit because it's part of the organization process. Now, this point number 3 of making a plan, in my opinion, is probably the most enjoyable part of this whole process because it's a lot like a game. You're going to try to figure out how to divide and conquer this task or this area that you're trying to get organized. And doing it on paper really helps. Now, here you see in this picture an example of a fairly messy closet. It's kind of a perfect example of the type of area that we might want to organize but feel overwhelmed by, right? We see this huge task in front of us, but next to it, what do we see? A nicely organized closet. That's the goal. Obviously, it's going to be much easier to find what you need, and you're going to feel much better when you open up the closet and see a nicely organized closet. The problem is, how do we get to that? Well, we can divide up this area into chunks that we can get done in the time that we've allotted. Instead of tearing everything out of the closet and getting half an hour into the project, and then what happens? We get called away, have to go pick up the kids, or some other issue that we have to deal with. Instead, why not attack one part of it that we can get done, beginning to end, in the time that we've set aside for ourselves? So, perhaps we start with the shelves on the left. The next time that we have some time set aside, we can maybe do the top shelf, and then maybe the hanging clothes, and then finally the bottom of the closet. Now, if that order doesn't make sense to you, no problem. Do your task in whatever order seems logical, but just try to physically break it up into separate areas that you're going to address each time you have some time allotted or set aside in your schedule to do it. Now, we know life is never even this tidy. Some of these tasks or these areas that we're going to attack spill over into others, and there's just no way to totally separate them. That's okay. The idea is you're giving yourself one area of focus. Does it mean some things may have to be moved over to one of the other shelves to be dealt with later? Probably, but that's okay. We don't need to be overwhelmed by that. We're just addressing one area at a time. The point is, your goal is to get organized. And if you first make a plan, then you can get organized at a pace and in an order that's going to work for you. So now, referring back to our organization worksheet, you'll see there are several boxes included under number 3, make a plan. And the first part of that is to just give yourself a total projected time that it's going to take you and maybe a reasonable deadline that you'd like to be finished with the whole project by. Then there's a box for you to write down some materials that you'll need. Like in the case of this closet, maybe there were more hangers they needed to purchase or other organizational units that they needed to buy to store things in. So having a little box to write those things down will help us to remember to put that on our shopping list so that we make sure we pick those things up or find them at a thrift store or whatever. Then there are 4 boxes that you can kind of break down what are the steps that you need to do each time that you set aside some time to address this area. Our final step is to clear out the clutter. This is by far the most important step, because with less clutter, it's going to be easier to find what you need. Now, you might remember these drawers that we showed you earlier, and in this first drawer, obviously, it's going to be kind of difficult to find specifically what you need. You're going to have to rattle around in the drawer for a while till you finally find it, which might not be too big of a deal until you start to add that to all the other areas of disorganization in the day that you deal with. It can become very frustrating, but with a little effort put forth, obviously some dividers are installed, and probably one of the biggest difference between these two drawers is in this other one, there's a lack of clutter. Copies of the same item have been pared down. So there's just basically fewer things in this drawer, and it's going to just take you a moment to find the specific thing that you need. And hiding your clutter can't do that for you. If we try to fit too many things into too small a space, inevitably we end up back at square one in a short time. So when it comes to clutter, it's best to get rid of it, if at all possible. But what exactly counts as clutter? Well, the simple explanation, of course, are things that you no longer need. For instance, clothes that no longer fit or they're worn out, items that maybe you haven't used for an extended period of time, or things that have little or no sentimental value. But it's, of course, up to you what to get rid of. But remember, the fewer the items, the easier it's going to be to find what you really need, and the easier it's going to be to keep them organized. The bottom line is, clearing out the clutter is what saves you time. Let's talk for a moment now about how to clear out the clutter. Now that we've figured out how to determine what is clutter, we still physically have to do something with it. One great suggestion is to have a designated box or bag that's specifically for the things that you determine to be clutter. Then you obviously put the clutter into that box. Now here is the key part. Set for yourself a certain amount of time that you're going to get rid of this clutter in. Now that could mean 24 hours, 3 days, maybe even a week. Whatever it is, determine a specific amount of time that you're going to allow yourself to get that thing out of your possession. Now the next step is to write that get rid of date on the box. So supposing today were March 25th, you could write on the box like this, 3/28. Then by 3/28, the clutter in that box had better be out of the house. Doesn't matter if it's thrown away, recycled, donated, given away, consigned, sold, whatever. Never allow that box or that bag to stay in your home beyond that written date. If you do this enough times, it will become a habit, and getting in the habit of allowing no more than the set number of days is going to ensure that you always clear that clutter out. So hopefully now we understand the 4 steps to get us started in organization. Number 1, determine where to start. Number 2, set aside the time. Number 3, make a plan. And number 4, clear out the clutter. So with those 4 steps in mind, we're now ready to organize really about anything in our homes. But now we're going to discuss how to manage your paperwork in an organized way, because we all have documents that we have to handle throughout our lives, whether they're kind of continuously coming into the home, like bills and bank statements, tax documents. There are forms of identification that are important. Properly managing these things can save us a lot of time and a lot of headache. Of course, there's more than one way to organize your documents. For paying bills or responding to important letters, some people like to use just a handy inbox-outbox system. Or others maybe have a filing system where they keep all their really important documents, like their social security card, their birth certificates, things that they're going to keep forever. But most people kind of use a balance or a mixture of the two. So maybe they have a specific place they file bills, things that come and go often, and then another place for things they keep for a period of time, like tax returns, and then an area for things they save forever, like birth certificates. So managing your finances, your bills, and your budget is a project that we discuss in another Hope University lesson, the one on managing your money. For now, we're going to just focus on the type of filing system that helps us to do that. It helps us with these last 2 types of documents, those that we keep for a longer period of time and those that we keep forever. As boring as it sounds, a filing system is a very important part of organization, perhaps even the most important. And here's why. Have you ever tried to sell a car without a title? Or how about get a passport without your birth certificate? It's just not going to happen. A filing system can help you to always know that those important documents are safe, and it lets you find them easily when you need them. The point is, even if your house is cluttered with things other than paper and documents, having an organized filing system will help you to be more in control of everything from your finances to your children's schoolwork or your online passwords and important legal documents. Having such important things under control can prevent us from accumulating a great deal of stress. So creating a filing system does not have to be an overly complicated process. It's really pretty simple. We've broken it down into just 5 very easy steps. The first of all, make a list of the documents that are important to you, things that you know you want to keep either for a period of time or indefinitely, and you may even group them into those categories. That's the second step. Group the documents in some way that will make sense to you, that once you file them, you'll remember how you group them so you can get back to them. Which brings us to step number 2, group the documents. Do it in a way that's neither too general nor too specific, but is going to make sense to you so that when you return to your filing cabinet or wherever it is you're keeping them, you'll be able to find what you put there. Then, once you've got a big list with all your documents, you've figured out how you're going to group them, you'll need to get the appropriate supplies. So, first, you might need something that can contain the documents. Many people prefer to get a filing cabinet or even pick one up at a thrift store, but some less expensive options could be a cardboard filing box or a plastic file crate. You can get these at pretty much any store like Fred Meyer or Walmart, whatever. Even better, if you have a desk, it may have a file drawer in it, and you can use that for this purpose. Now, the next thing that might be helpful are file folders. These will allow you to effectively divide the papers into the categories that we've already written down. So you'll know how many you need by how many categories you've made, and they're generally pretty inexpensive. Now, once you've gotten the supplies you need, just label your folders with those categories and file your documents away. Again, we're going to emphasize the need to clear out the clutter. So throw away any of those documents that you don't really need to save. Remember, there's 2 types of documents that are going in here, those that we save forever and those that we don't. An example could be tax return information, something that you throw away after 10 years, whereas a birth certificate, again, you're going to keep forever. So periodically, you can set a date to go back through your filing system and clear out the clutter again. Get rid of the things that you no longer need. If you don't keep up on this, eventually you'll find your filing system becomes another area to catch clutter. So it is another thing you'll have to stay on top of to keep it organized. What we really want is for organization to become, for us, a daily routine, just a way of life. So once you've developed an organization system, staying organized is easy if you follow these tips. For one thing, get the whole family involved in organizing. All family members living in the home should help take care of the home that they live in. And almost everyone can do something, even small children. For example, I think I was about 14 years old when my parents started having me just wash and fold and take care of my own laundry by myself. So don't ever think it's too soon to start to teach kids how to organize and pick up after themselves. So teach them that if they use it, they need to put it back where it belongs. And we need to do the same thing too. Don't wait until later, do it immediately. If you leave something where you used it last, it may seem to save you time, but it's really not. The next time you have to use that thing, you'll waste a lot of time looking for it. So instead of just laying something down, put it where it belongs. A place for everything and everything in its place, as you've probably heard before. And keep it clean. Clean up as you go. This follows the same principle as does putting things back immediately. If you clean up spills, let's say a cooking mess or a bathroom accident, right after it happens, there's no opportunity for things to harden or crystallize or whatever and become more difficult to clean. In other words, it's going to save you time, as well as peace of mind. So even if you don't do dishes right after a meal, make sure the kitchen is clean before going to bed. And in this way, you're not going to lose any precious time in the morning. Again, here's where it's important to get the cooperation of the whole family. All should know that as soon as they finished a meal, that any dishes or silverware they have need to be rinsed and either put in the sink or put into the dishwasher, and so that they're ready to be washed quickly as soon as possible. Another helpful tip to keep it clean is having things like Clorox wipes in the bathroom so that anyone can use them immediately if needed. So cleaning your kitchen before bed and having Clorox wipes in the bathroom are just 2 tips to help you get started. Really, though, keeping it clean applies to every room in the house. So donate unwanted items. When you're cleaning out, have a bag or box for items no longer needed or used. Donate them, sell them, whatever, but get rid of them by their expiration date, like we talked about. Clothes that we no longer wear, toys the children are too old for, books that we've read but they just sit there on the shelves. Whatever's in your home that's not needed, go ahead and get rid of it as you organize. When you put unnecessary or used items in that bag or box, make a note to have them get out of your home no later than 7 days from the date that you pack them. So don't just move the clutter, get rid of it. Now, you could throw things away or you could sell them, but when you cultivate the habit of donating these things, not only are you saving yourself some time in the long run, but you will find it highly rewarding to give back to the community, knowing that the things that you weren't really benefiting from before are now helping another family. While no one can change overnight, incorporating these tips into your daily life will soon make new, more organized habits that are going to benefit you and your whole family. So we've covered the organization part of our materials so far. We've talked about the 4 steps that can help us in getting organized. Number 1, determining a place to start. And then number 2, setting aside the time to do it. Number 3, making a plan, some sort of plan of action that will work for us on a schedule that's going to work for us. And then number 4, focusing on clearing out the clutter. We mentioned some other good suggestions too, like putting a date on the box or bag of things that you want to get rid of so we get those out of the house in a timely manner. And also how to make a filing system so that we can have a proper place for all of our important documents to go. Now we understand what organizing means. It means imposing a sense of order on your environment. And by implementing what we've learned, we'll be saving ourselves a lot of time. Now, if we just learn how to manage that time, we can really get things moving and start reaching our bigger goals. So what is time management? How do we do that? Well, to begin with, think about how you would personally define what time is. It's a little ambiguous to think about, isn't it? It's a little hard to pin down. But think about this definition. Time is merely the order of events, not an entity itself. That's what this one German mathematician came up with. That's a pretty simple way of looking at it, because trying to control time is impossible. You can't do it. You just feel like it's slipping away from you all the time, like you're hanging on the clock, like that picture we saw at the beginning. But taking control of events, that is something we can do, one event at a time. So thinking of it that way, time management could really just be called event control. Now, how can we get a measure of control over the events in our life? Thanks to the busy world in which we live, time management is crucial really for everyone, from students to teachers, factory workers and homemakers to professionals and CEOs. Everyone has a certain variety of tasks that they must accomplish throughout each and every day. So by just working on some of these things a little bit, we can make sure that we're not missing appointments or overlooking tasks that are important. Now, you might be saying to yourself, I've tried time management. It just doesn't work for me. Or my life is just too out of control right now. There's too many chaotic variables, and I have children and family that make demands on my time. Maybe you even feel like scheduling your life or managing your time too much is going to restrict your freedom to do what you want to with your time and not give you the flexibility or spontaneity that you desire. But according to a number of experts, such perceptions are totally inaccurate and self-defeating. Once you learn the skills of time management and you remember to plan ahead, you actually take control of your days, work towards your goals, and get much more satisfaction out of life because you've spent the time doing the things that you want to do. You ensure that you're not sabotaging your own efforts. Now, the first thing to do if you want to manage your time is get a good calendar. Of course, there are a number of different personal calendar systems that you can use. For example, it really doesn't matter what kind of calendar you choose to use as long as it's a calendar that you will use, one that you will follow through on. That's why many people like using electronic calendars today, either on their cell phones or on their computers. They can do all the same things as other calendars, of course, but they can be programmed to send alerts and reminders a little before each of the appointments or things that you've detailed in there. So that can be very useful. But there's nothing wrong with using paper calendars either. That's worked for centuries for many people. So whatever works for you, remember, you can even pick up good calendars and planners at the dollar store. So it doesn't have to cost much. But just having some place that we know we're going to regularly write down our different appointments and dates and times that we want to remember can make a world of difference in getting our lives organized. Another great idea is to have a family calendar. So the family calendar is something that you keep in the home in addition to whatever personal calendars each individual has. And this is where the family can share information about where they're going to be, what they'll be doing. So things like work schedules, events, appointments, class schedules, holidays, vacation, all those things can be put in that one place so everyone in the family knows the schedules of all the different individuals. But for yourself, remember to just keep one personal calendar. The more calendars you have does not necessarily make you more organized. In reality, it often works in reverse. It increases the likelihood that you'll double book or even miss an appointment altogether. But when you just use one calendar to schedule appointments, you avoid that risk of booking two things on the same day. And use your calendar to help you clear out the clutter. We've talked about some suggestions earlier for doing that. You can make regular appointments throughout the year for times that you'd like to attack certain areas and get rid of clutter, especially in your filing system. You can even use your calendar to help you in working toward your goals. So clearly, a calendar is a great tool for planning and for keeping track of milestones, but be sure to schedule yourself some free time because your physical and mental health are very important too. And sometimes in our effort to be organized, our calendars get so filled up with things that we have to do that it may be good to go ahead and schedule some time for things that we want to do, some appropriate rest and relaxation. Spend some time with the family, have a game night, a movie night, whatever it is, and make sure that you don't overschedule yourself and stress yourself out. I'd like to briefly cover several time management tips now, and hopefully at least some of these might be new to you, so you might want to write some of these down if there are some specifics that stand out as things that might be helpful to you in trying to keep yourself organized and use your time wisely. First, like we said before, make a plan and organize whatever task you're doing. So especially with larger projects, even if you just take a minute or two to kind of organize yourself, maybe write down a list of the things that you want to accomplish or what things you'll need to get that project done, can make a huge difference in using your time wisely. So for instance, if you're going to be doing some painting, instead of just popping open the paint can and starting to slap paint on the walls, maybe stop and think, what are all the things I'm going to need? Do I have, in addition to the paint and the brushes, do I have some tape, some rollers, drop cloths, whatever? So you're not having to break away constantly and break your momentum in getting the task done. Plan to reward yourself after you've completed an unpleasant task. For example, maybe you dread cleaning the kitchen or washing the dishes. So reward yourself by planning on doing something that you enjoy as soon as you're done. Maybe it's just half an hour watching a favorite show or reading a book, doing a crossword, whatever that happens to be. It can be helpful to give yourself a reward to make the task easier to accomplish, give yourself some motivation. Keep in mind, too, that we cannot do everything that we would like to do, and we certainly can't do everything others would like us to do either. So be willing, at times, to say no to additional obligations, especially when you know you've reached your limit. That can be very hard to do, especially if we're someone who likes to make others happy. But remember, saying yes and then disappointing someone later doesn't make them happy either. So be willing to be upfront and honest with friends, with family, even at work. If you can't keep the extra commitment without an undue measure of stress, talk it out and see if other arrangements can be made. Obviously, we can't just say no to everything, so it is very helpful to be able to prioritize. We need to be able to ask ourselves, what should I do first? What should I do once that's done? Sometimes just asking yourself some simple questions like that may be enough. But obviously prioritizing can be a little more complicated than that, especially the more complicated our lives are. So we will talk about something that can help in just a moment. But prioritizing, even if you can't finish everything, at least you're finishing the things that are most important. Also, be aware of your most productive times of the day. That is, what is the time of day when you are at your best? Some people are more morning people, whereas some are more a night owl or a late afternoon person. But just know what your best time is when you really kind of come alive mentally and physically, and then use that time of day to get your priorities accomplished whenever possible. It's also generally a good idea to finish one task entirely before moving on to the next. That gives you a feeling of completion and satisfaction and accomplishment. And make sure that you just do one thing at a time. When people try to multitask, the brain really focuses less on each of the different tasks by constantly needing to jump back and forth. So we really don't perform well when we try to focus on multiple things at once. The errors tend to go way up, and it takes a lot longer to get them done than had we just focused on one and then focused on the next. So it's better, whenever possible, to focus on one task at a time. No matter how organized we want to be, or how many time management tips we learn, it's not going to matter if we don't have the self-discipline required to follow through and do them. The most efficient to-do list in the world will not help someone who does not look at or follow his own daily planner. Self-discipline means taking control of your actions and accepting responsibility for what you do. If you want to develop your time management skills, it's a good idea to take the initiative. Be proactive about your schedule. Don't wait for some tomorrow that just never comes before you start saving yourself the time you deserve. You can plan for the future by setting for yourself small goals every day that will help you reach the big ones. For example, if you have a big goal of getting a new car, then little goals, including regular maintenance on the car that you have now, are going to help you reach that big one, because regularly doing that maintenance helps you keep your car in good condition so that it's worth more and you can trade it in, get more from it for the one that you want, things like that. Another important aspect of self-discipline is dependability. You need to be consistent in your actions, or you will find that chaos quickly slips back into your organized world. If you continue to follow through with your lists and your goals, then you will find that stress level decreasing. You're going to feel better about yourself and feel better about your surroundings. Remember, you never hit a bullseye if you don't set up the target. So take the time to write down your goals. This will really help you in staying motivated, staying focused on what it is you're trying to get done. Now, there is one definite enemy when we're trying to get organized or trying to use our time wisely, and that is procrastination. What is procrastination? Simply put, it's putting off an action or event until a later time. So it is a form of event control, like we talked about before. But what's wrong with it? Well, obviously, it can stand like a wall between us and many of our goals. Now, virtually every one of us has procrastinated at some point in our lives. Can you think of a time in the past when you may have procrastinated? If you can, think about what caused you to do that. There are really three major causes of procrastination for most people. Many times it's some combination of them that leads us to fall into this trap. The first is perfectionism. That feeling that if we can't do this thing perfectly, exactly the way we want to, then forget it. We don't want to do it at all. The second is fear. Fear of what, you might wonder? Well, fear of failure, fear of disappointing other people in the way we carry the task out, or fear that we're not up to doing the task in the first place. Maybe we really don't have what it takes to get it done. And the third can very easily happen to all of us, disorganization. Maybe we simply haven't gathered the things that we need, or we don't know when the deadline is. We haven't really determined what specifically the expectations are. Maybe we're just used to running from one emergency to the next emergency, kind of putting out fires, so to speak. Then disorganization is really what may be causing our procrastination. Well, what can we do about this? First of all, I want you to think about this statement. A successful life does not result from chance, nor is it determined by fate or good fortune, but from a succession of successful days. It's a pretty simple statement, but why is this an important realization if we're going to get past procrastination? Well, first of all, it tells us we can choose to do something about it. And secondly, we don't have to accomplish everything at once. So why not just focus on having a successful day? Instead of making it this giant thing that we have to overcome, we suddenly realize what I have is today. What can I do to make today successful? So let's talk about some other tips that can be very helpful in helping us to have a successful day and overcome procrastination. One surefire cause of procrastination that affects almost all of us at some point is just feeling overwhelmed. When there are too many things that crowd in upon us or complications in our life, or especially things that are emotionally taxing, then we can start to feel overwhelmed and just want to really give up on a lot of things. But a good way to deal with that is to just think back to event control. Can we divide a project or whatever it is that's facing us into some smaller events and get some control over them, not feel so overwhelmed by them? Maybe we don't even get started because we know if we start that we'll want to finish some big task and we don't have time to do it. So it's hard enough to get the momentum going to get started. But can we reframe that? For instance, it's been suggested that we could set an egg timer for a specific period of time that we know we can afford and just work until it dings. So once it's done, we can move on to something else. Another thing that's nice about that, if you set an egg timer and kind of tear into a task, it builds some urgency in you too, knowing that thing is counting down. And it can make it even almost, dare I say, fun to work on it in that small allotment of time. Or maybe we just need to start. Maybe you remember walking out to the edge of the high dive for the first time. Did you find the longer you stood there, the harder it was to just jump? It's much better to just walk out to the end and dive in, right? So maybe we're thinking about the task too much. We just need to dive in, begin immediately. But what if our motivation to do anything is just lacking? We're just not in the mood to do it. Or maybe we feel like we're not in the frame of mind to do it the right way. Well, what can we do about that? There's a couple of things. Number one, can we think of a very good reason to get it done early? That sounds so simple, it might even sound stupid, but the reality is that we spend more time thinking about how hard something's going to be instead of just concentrating on the benefits of actually doing it, especially how good we're going to feel if we get it done early. But if we find that fear drives us more, we might need to remind ourselves of the consequences of not getting it done on time. Is our job at stake? Our well-being? Are we destroying a relationship with someone by not following through on this thing? Well, what if we're already just too busy? It won't improve anything to just give up or procrastinate. We may, again, need to establish priorities by focusing on what is urgent versus what is important. Now, we touched on priorities a little earlier. We're going to show you something now that can really help you in figuring this out. What are your priorities, or how can you prioritize? So how can we prioritize in a way that will make sense and will help us to accomplish the things that really matter to us? Well, we could try using what is called officially Covey's time management matrix, which is just a fancy way of saying 4 boxes that are marked 1, 2, 3, and 4 like you see here. All this is a good way of dividing up our tasks into priorities, 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. Now, in box 1, as you see here, are the things that are important and urgent. So those tasks obviously should be our first priority. They go at the top of your to-do list. They're important. They must be done today or as soon as possible. Now, in section 2, box number 2, are the things that are important but not necessarily urgent. These are the tomorrow tasks. So they should be our second priority, because if we don't do them, we know we will face consequences in the future because they are important. Maybe they're just not pressing at the moment. Those should be second on our list of priorities. Then box number 3, those things that are urgent but not important. Now think about that. These are tasks that are maybe urgent for some reason. They're urgent to someone else. Someone else is demanding an answer to a question or whatever it might be, but they're not necessarily that important to us. These are things that should probably be our third priority. Frankly, much of the email that we receive and things that come up in social media, things like Facebook or Instagram or whatever it might be, fall into this quadrant because they feel urgent because they're happening right now, but in reality, they're really not that important. And then we have box number 4, those things that are not urgent and they're not important. These should really be just deleted from our daily task list altogether. They're simply a distraction that keeps us from accomplishing those items in the first 2 quadrants. So looking at this, one thing you'll realize if you start to kind of look at your own life, most people jump from the 1 right past the 2 and into number 3. Those things that feel urgent, those number 3s, they feel urgent, but they're not necessarily important, like answering email all the time or whatever it might be. So it takes some discipline, some self-discipline, and some effort to get in the habit of, once we get those urgent and important things done, to start attacking those things that maybe aren't urgent yet, but we know they're important. They will be urgent later on. So these 4 boxes can really help us get control of that. The more we apply these principles, the better equipped we are to fight our own tendency to procrastinate. It really doesn't have to be too complicated. If we're feeling overwhelmed, just sit down, make a big square on a piece of paper, divide it into 4 squares, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and get some perspective on the tasks that you need to get done. See where they land. Now, I'm going to give you on the screen here a list of tasks, and these are just ones that you can kind of practice mentally. Where would this go in your priority boxes? For different people, they may land in different boxes, but think about for you, which of these things would you describe as box number 1, urgent and important? Number 2, not urgent but important. Or number 3, urgent but not important. Or maybe some of these would even fall in number 4. But this is just kind of an exercise to get you thinking about it. You'll note back on the page that linked you to this video that there should be links too for downloading and printing out your own Covey's time management matrix so that you can use these boxes to help you prioritize the things that matter most to you. The things we've talked about in this video are really the foundation of organizing and time management. Once you start placing order in your life, you'll quickly find that you have more time to spend doing the things that you really want to, the things you enjoy. Remember, anyone can learn to get organized. What it really takes is setting realistic goals for your projects so that you don't get frustrated. Time management is about being efficient, prioritizing when you're too busy, and making sure that you still get some time for yourself. But remember, the purpose is to help you enjoy your life, enjoy reaching your goals and accomplishing the things that you really want to do. If you keep cultivating the necessary self-discipline, you will in time succeed in being organized and getting the most out of your time.